Pedro Kurtz. I am Director of Content for the Americas. I work at Deezer. Oh, we talked about so many things, but I think the most important of them is how local content has been much more dominant in the charts in Latin America, specifically for the panel, but it's happening all over the place. So it's music consumption related to music user behavior, and also how do we monetize the music industry more in Latin America. Globalization's been happening for over 10 years now. So back in the day when DSPs started, the belief was that every single person in the world, given that DSPs are global, would listen much more to global music, because that was a given, right? There's only a few companies taking care of that. So what actually happened is quite the opposite. So DSPs gave power to the people, and then people can now listen to any song they want, whenever they want, however they want. There's a question of relatability. People, when they're listening to music, they express their culture as well. So they want to see in the artist that they're listening to some of their cultural values, some of their physical attributes. They want to see themselves in the artist as well. So that generates a lot more consumption in local content. Brazil has been much more dominant in local content for years and years and years, because Brazil is such a continental country, so big that it's self-sufficient in terms of music, which is not the case for some other countries that need to export music in order for their artists to break. So in Brazil, yes, we saw that trend. There was a lot of international content being pushed in the country as well. But Brazilian content, as far as I can remember, and then I can date back to the 60s, it was always about Brazilian music. In Mexico, something similar happened, but it's much more international now because of the diaspora as well. So people moving into the United States, 20% of the United States population now is considered Latin. So that means more than 60 million people. And then, music travels as well. Well, we have a very good editorial team in the region. Since day one, our strategy was to be as local as possible. We even had a little beautiful, expression for that, which was called the local heroes. So we hired editors that are real specialists in music genres that are considered very, very local. And then those people were developing, the editorial offer and the original projects that we did and the programming. So they act as music researchers and music journalists all along. We prepared for that a long time ago, given that Brazil is a very, is a very specific country. For all the other countries in Latin America, we have local experts in every country that we operate from a very business-centered basis. And the future of this, I don't see it going back. I see it moving a lot forward. What we would really like to see is the breaking of the barrier between Brazil and other countries in Latin America, Spanish-speaking. Because we were just talking about this. I think the language barrier is being reduced, little by little, because people are getting more used to how it sounds rather than what they're actually saying. Of course, the lyrics, they play a very important role in the music, but there is something to be developed there. So I think what we would love to see in the future is this bigger collaboration between Spanish-speaking and Portuguese-speaking artists in Latin America. They already do featurings, but I think whenever you want to come to a country like Brazil or Mexico or Chile or Argentina, there's so many, you have to make an effort. This is what the question that we get all the time is how do I break in Brazil? From artists, Latin artists in the United States or in Mexico, or even artists in Europe and France, and the answer is always the same. You have to make an effort. You can't just go to Brazil or to Mexico or to Argentina for one tour and do a little bit round of promo and expect people to love you after that. You have to go there. You have to learn a little bit of the language. You have to try. Every Anglo artist that comes to Brazil and says a few words in Portuguese, like Bruno Mars does that immensely great. So he comes to Brazil, he wears the national soccer team shirt. He learns a little bit of Portuguese. He speaks a little bit of Portuguese in the shows. Paul McCartney does that very well as well. And people just love them because they're making an effort to connect. It's all about connection. Latins are very warm people. They want to see it. They want to feel it. It's not only about the work and the title. It's about how they feel at the concert. So I think it's about consistency. If you want to break in a Latin American country, you have to be consistent and you have to make an effort to connect with local culture. One thing that changed everything was the introduction of the digital mixer. So you can actually, when you started to record digitally, everything changed in the music industry. And then as hardware became cheaper and more accessible, people now can really produce music wherever they are. We've seen in 2020, like we've taken data from July 2020 until July 2021, right on the pandemic, right? So we saw like the most mainstream music genre in Brazil going from 32% market share into 23. And then we got another music genre that is ever evolving, going up and down in Brazil, but it has a footprint, so it's been there forever. Growing from 7 to 21 in just a year. And all of those people, you know, the artists who were producing, the music producers, the songwriters, they could produce in such rapid way and so they just gather, you know, like online, start producing. They have everything like on keyboards and samples. And that generated a new music, like not generated actually, sorry, I'm gonna go back to that.
Developed.
Yeah. That generated like a lot more music production for that music genre. And it highlighted a new subgenre that was, you know, very, very small in a few places off the northeast of Brazil. It became a national thing. And then we saw it in the data, you know, like the market share was skyrocketing from 7 to 21% in a year. And taking most of it from the most mainstream genres who were not producing music anymore because their music production methods were so expensive because they were hiring like the best producers, engineers, whatnot. They couldn't gather anymore at studios because of the pandemic. So those people, they actually made like a revolution in Brazil in music. And that music genre exploded in so many regions. It became a national thing. And I think it's not the case anymore. Like Brazilians are producing music from various standpoints, from different levels of like academic knowledge, but there's a lot more practical knowledge being put into place now. Chile has a beautiful music scene of reggaeton, beautiful, and trap. Like Chile is so strong in reggaeton, they're exporting artists. Like Colombia exported so many artists to the whole world. Because the size of the country is much smaller than Brazil. Brazil's got 240 million people. So we didn't need to export, which is, it's a different thing. You know, I think like, I even said this to a reporter like a couple months ago. The artists now in Brazil, because of some examples and because of, you know, the way we communicate in a much faster environment and digital, they now believe it's possible to export their music. So they're preparing for that. Some of them have had success. Anitta has had success. Luisa Sonza had success. Ludmilla is working on it. She had a great success, you know, just a couple of months ago, she played at Coachella, at main stage. So it's growing, but it takes time. And now I think we're bound to success with exporting our music as well.
Well, okay, success for you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That it?
Yeah, thank you.
All right.